Peace and blessings. Welcome back to the channel once again. I'm Dr. Bobby Price, and today I'm going to teach you 8 ways you're feeding parasites, yeast, and cancer. Now, you may be asking yourself, parasites, yeast, and cancer, how are those things connected? And I'm going to explain to you in just a second. I'm going to give you a brief explanation that your doctor in most cases can't give you because they don't know the connection. You rarely get treated for parasites. If ever, they rarely even check you for parasites when they're often the issue. You rarely get checked for yeast unless you have yeast coming out of the body in some form of a yeast infection for a woman, a jock itch, athlete's feet, really bad dandruff, but all these things are yeast. But you rarely get treated for it unless it's coming out of the body. But most of the time, it's in the body, you just don't know it. All right, so you rarely get treated for yeast, you rarely get treated for parasites. And so I understand why they don't understand the connection between the two. But the issue with cancer is a disease of metabolism. Most people would like to think, or most people are told, that cancer is genetic. But only about 5% of cancers are actually related directly to genetics. All right, the other 95%, which is that 95% is the bulk of cancers that you know of. Reproductive cancers like cervical cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer. The list goes on and on. The vast majority of pancreatic cancer, all of these cancers, they have nothing to do with genes. All right. All right, so it's really important to understand these cancers are diseases of metabolism. The issue is metabolism. And what's the connection? All right. If you look at a healthy cell and then you look at a cancerous cell, the big difference you will see is the difference in the metabolism. The healthy cell is on cellular respiration. It uses glucose. All right. All right. Cellular respiration, which means that it has to use oxygen. All right. The cancerous cell is on fermentation. All right. Like fermenting, like rotting. It's on that type of fermentation. That's how you distinguish the difference between the two cells. All right. What's also different about the cancerous cell is not only is it on fermentation, and it's consuming a lot of glucose, and many times 10 times the amount of glucose or sugar that a healthy cell would, they're also consuming a lot of glutamine as well too, which is an amino acid. And guess what also loves to consume those things, sugar and glutamine? Parasites. And guess what happens? Think about this. Often when you see a tumor, all right, we're now starting to look at tumors under a microscope. Now, you never want to burst the tumor because when you burst the tumor, now the cancer spreads all over the body. That's called metastasis. But we can look at these tumors microscopically and look beyond just that top layer. We can see parasites inside of those tumors. Okay, hugely important. So parasites, yeast, and cancer are directly connected in many cases. All right, so I'm going to teach you how you're feeding parasites and yeast, which ultimately means that you're feeding cancer as well too. All right, so a little controversial topic today because most people don't know this new research, but I'm putting you on game. All right, one way that you feed parasites, yeast, and cancer: sushi, fish, salmon. Okay. Fish are often loaded with, unfortunately, heavy metals, these type of fish. And then also, they're loaded with parasites, all right? If you look up the foods that often contain the most parasites, you will find that it is fish, all right? Just look it up for yourself, all right? I've done videos on this where you see bears that consume a lot of the salmon that's in fresh water, and that salmon is infected by parasites, okay? That is in the water, all right? Whenever that salmon lays the eggs, that parasite targets those eggs, and then they eventually become salmon, which is controlled that salmon becomes controlled by the parasite, which is a whole nother conversation. And then the bear eats it, and then you see these bears with long strings of parasites hanging out in them, a long tapeworm. Okay, so that's one way. Sushi, salmon, fish. Okay, all right. But these things are also loaded with heavy metals. Heavy metals, guess what? Most people don't know this, but parasites consume heavy metals. Just do a quick search. Parasites consuming heavy metals. You will see articles and studies on PubMed, by the National Institutes of Health, and many others. Okay, parasites consume heavy metals. So the more heavy metals you have in your body, the more you're feeding parasites. All right, number 2, processed foods. All right, processed foods are actually feeding your parasites as well too. All right, why? Because processed foods are not only loaded with food chemicals. All right, but many of those processed foods have been on the shelf, have been shelf stabilized for so long that they have parasites in them. One, also, these processed foods are loaded with sugar. All right, you can go look at ketchup and mayo. Even ketchup and mayo has sugar in it. They put sugar in all processed foods. All right, these processed foods are also laden with GMO organisms, genetically modified organisms, pesticides, herbicides, and insecticides that essentially target and eliminate your good bacteria in your gut, which makes 70% of your immune system. Okay? So when you don't have an immune system, you not only can't fight off parasites and yeast, but you can't fight off cancer as well too. So you eat processed foods, and the more you eat, the more you're feeding parasites, yeast, and cancer. Okay? And 69%, 70% roughly of the standard American diet is processed foods. So it makes sense why cancer is exploding in America. All right. Number 3, processed meats. All right. Now I know processed foods is kind of included in processed meats, but I want to distinguish between the two because processed foods are often in box, bag, cans, and jars. And these processed meats are not only, and when I say processed meats, I'm talking about bacon, hot dogs, hamburgers, deli meat, the sandwich meat that I grew up eating, making sandwiches. I used to love sandwiches. They are level 1 carcinogen, okay? And this isn't something I created, but the governing body that determines what is carcinogenic, what causes cancer, has determined them to be a level 1, the highest cancer-causing agent. They are level 1 carcinogen in terms of causing cancer, causing diabetes as well too. All right, so when you eat processed meats, you're feeding parasites, yeast, and cancer. All right, number 4, vitamin D deficiency. And this is the one that most people don't talk about. But when you have a vitamin D deficiency, you have to understand that vitamin D is the remote control for your immune system. All right. Without a remote control, with most TVs today, you can't even turn on the TV, much less turn the volume or turn the channel. All right. So our vitamin D literally tells our natural killer cells, go eat that, go kill that. It tells our macrophages, eat up the bacteria, eat up the cancer. Okay. Is literally like a general, our vitamin D, telling our immune system how to respond to certain invaders. When you don't have vitamin D, the parasite, the cancer can hide in the body. And parasites and cancer do cloak themselves. They hide. And when you don't have this general, it can't find them. So your vitamin D deficiency is actually feeding your parasite, your yeast, and your cancer as well too. And this is something that doctors don't talk about. You go into the doctor, your vitamin D has been low for a decade and still hasn't been addressed. You're taking a capsule once a week or whatever it is you're taking, but your vitamin D levels are still low. All right, it still hasn't been addressed. Check out my video on the page I've done a video on vitamin D deficiency. I tell you how to address that. That's number 4, vitamin D deficiency. Number 5, an unhealthy gut. If you are constipated, meaning you don't have a bowel movement for every meal. If you have 2 meals a day, you should have 2 bowel movements. 3 meals a day, 3 bowel movements. If you don't do that, you are constipated. I know that's not the medical definition, but that is nature's definition. Look at animals. They eat, they poop. We're supposed to do the same. All right. When you're bloated all the time, when you're gassy all the time, when your gut is inflamed, when you have acid reflux, any of these type of symptoms are telling you you have an unhealthy gut. When you have an unhealthy gut, you will have an unhealthy microbiome, which means that you will have a disproportionately higher amount of bad bacteria versus good bacteria. Your good bacteria makes up 70% of your immune system. Your good bacteria is capable of creating its own antibiotics. The antibiotics that you get from the pharmacy, all right, your body can create its own antibiotics that target a specific virus, a specific bacteria in the body. Hugely important, all right? Number 6, your sweet tooth. Your sweet tooth, although it seems benign, oh, it's just a little sweet tooth, and then you smile it off. That's feeding your parasites. They love sugar. Your yeast, it loves sugar. Your cancer, it loves sugar. I talked about this in the beginning. All right. It's one of the most deadly things you can have in your diet is unhealthy sugar. All right. I'm not talking about fruits. I'm not talking about dates. I'm talking about the sugar you love in cookie cakes and pies and sweet things and sweet drinks. All right. That is feeding your parasites, your yeast, and your cancer. All right. Number 7, seed oils. Seed oils are not only destructive to your gut bacteria, which I talk about is connected to your immune system. They destroy your gut, okay? But they inflame your entire body, your entire vascular system. When you eat those type of seed oils, okay, it compromises your entire health, but it also feeds parasites, yeast, and cancer, all right? Number 8, and most people don't think about this one either, your poor sleep. When you don't sleep well, here's the unfortunate thing. In many cases, when you don't sleep well, it's as a result that you have parasites, yeast in your body. All right. These are nocturnal pathogens. They wake up at night and they crave sugar. That's why you love sweet things at nighttime. All right. Because they wake up and they get busy at night. The freaks come out at night. All right. So they're probably causing you to have sleep issues, waking up during the night. All right. Parasites can cause you to have depression, anxiety. They can make you promiscuous. Okay. All right. You would say, why would a parasite do that? Because a parasite wants to multiply itself. All right. A parasite wants to multiply itself. And what better way to multiply itself? Because when you have sex with your partner, your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, you are giving them parasites. So when you do my detox, and many of you had did my detox, and you feel great after the detox is over, but then a month or 2 later, you're like, why do I feel like I did the month before I did the detox? You reinfected yourself because your partner didn't do the detox. Most people don't know about this. But your poor sleep, which is compromising your immune system, which is elevating your cortisol levels, all of this will feed parasites, yeast, and cancer, okay? All right, so it's hugely important you understand that until you address these things, you're going to be susceptible to what I believe in the next 5 to 10 years will be the number 1 cause of death of all human beings. Right now, it's cardiovascular disease. But cancer will become number 1 in the next 5 to 10 years because they're making more lab-grown meat. They're making things more processed, more sprayed with things. You have that more EMF. Went from 3G to 5G real quick. All of this is compromising our immune system, compromising the integrity of our body's ability to heal itself. All right? So the answer is 1, check all these things. Do detoxes, full body herbal detoxes that address parasites, that address yeast, that gets rid of heavy metals. okay, that gets rid of waste out of the body. Okay, you have to do a full body detox that targets the elimination organs or the detoxification organs like the liver, the kidneys, the lymphatic system, the skin, et cetera, that opens up these elimination channels and jumpstarts these detoxification organs. Most people are doing a liver detox. You do a liver detox, there's no portal for the liver to just spit its toxins out. Okay, it has to go into the digestive tract. If you're constipated, you just detox the liver and it went inside of the gut and it's going to recirculate back in the body. That's why a full body detox is essential. Okay. So if you have not done my full body detox, I highly recommend you can do the 14-day or the 28-day, but I highly recommend you do my group detox. My group detox starts in January 1st. All right. The deadline to join is December 5th. All right. Inside of the group detox, you're going to get a 30-day supply of the full body detox. You're going to get a meal plan, recipes, access to an online support group with hundreds. Last time we had over 1,000 people in there, inspiring, motivating each other on the same journey. I'm going to come inside of the group to coach you guys as well too. So I'll be in there with you, but I'll also be doing the detox with you. This is how I start the year off. Okay. So if you have not planned on how I'm going to do an oil change for my body, how am I going to change the brakes for my body, the transmission fluid, all right? If you haven't figured out what is my maintenance process for my body, this is the perfect plan for you. You could just go to drbobbyprice.com. The deadline to join the group detox is December 5th. Okay, not a day later. Okay, so you can get signed up. I would love to see you inside of there. I'll put the link down below in the description. Please share this with everybody you love. All right, sharing is caring. This is the kind of sharing that is actually caring, because this isn't the kind of information that you're gonna get when you go in and get a checkup. All right, and if you have not hit that subscribe button and become a part of our family and the movement that we're doing, go ahead, hit that subscribe button so you let YouTube know that we're a movement that's not going to be stopped. Until the next time, peace and blessings and Godspeed. Take care.